Shalom, Call Halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai Bahasham Rakah Kwadash. Double honors into the apostles, double honors into the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. The would-be judges, 144,000, and the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathen nations, that have the appearance of the heathen nations, the victims of the diaspora. This is not a black thing, a color thing. And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. Do not get it twisted. All right. The bulk of the Lord's people today here on earth are the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Yet the Israelites are scattered among all people, so they're going to come looking like all people in these last days as they're gathered up. All right. And that's just a fact that some people still have a problem with, with accepting. So today I plan on going into a couple videos. So much information is coming in, it's flooding in. So many things are happening in the earth. But I got a couple videos that it came from beloved brother Zahar Yahweh. And then, of course, my beloved on the spot journalist April O'Neil. I'll finish up with one that came from her. But I'm going to let these videos play. And first I'm going to bring out some scriptures. And then I'm going to let these videos play. And you can circle back to these scriptures and see how fitting they are to the video that's playing. The first one is, I'm going to play about a little over 5 minutes of the video. The second one, I'm going to play about 12 minutes of it. And I'm going to do my best to try and not to interject and just let it play and let the scripture speak. All right. So without any further ado, this is Middle Nation with I forget the brother's name. This Ishmaelite, I believe. Like I said, I believe this dude is Jake for sure. But he is giving the wicked no rest. All right. Not according to knowledge, but definitely, using common sense and just evidence of truth, evidence of fraud, evidence of lies. All right. So this is, you can see the name of it. Identify by your real situation, not your fake nation. All right. And this is a fake nation, and it is a fake people and their lies, and they're all being controlled by the same people, the small hats. So the problems that you're seeing today in this society are all created by so-called white men. These are their problems. They did this. No one else. You can't blame it on the so-called blacks. You can't blame it on the so-called Hispanics. You can't even blame it on the poor so-called whites. That make up the majority of the people who actually receive welfare here in America. They hate that fact. They duck and dodge that fact. All right. What you can blame it on is the Israeli lobbyists and the support of Israel and every other foreign nation. All right, that we send billions of dollars of money to on a monthly basis, yearly basis, and all these wicked, corrupt people that you have in office that work for the very same said people. So without any further ado, check the sound. Here we go.
America really was aborted when it was just an embryonic idea.
Actually, let's get these scriptures first. All right. To set the tone for what he's saying. Let's let the scriptures come out first. This is first one is going to simply be Job 9:24. Which I probably could have said by heart, but Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So you have a man who covered up the true judges and put his face up. And he's been a corrupt judge the entire time. Next scripture. Daniel 4:17. And it reads, this matter is by the decree of the watchers. The watchers are the men of the Lord who put up videos daily, filtering the current news and media, and through the scriptures and prophecy through the Bible. This is about a matter of the decree of the watchers and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High Yahweh ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set up over it the bases of men. And now he's letting those bases of men be found out and show themselves to be as base as they are. All right. And this man is going to demonstrate very articulately how base the people in charge are. These liars, these murderers, these colonizing murderers who profit on death, destruction, and thievery, land grabs. Jeremiah 9:8. It reads, and their tongue is an arrow shot out. It speak of deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but his heart layeth, in his heart, meaning his mind, he layeth his weight. So he's just waiting to rape, rob, murder, steal, subjugate you, all right, and put payments on you with horrific levels of usury.
Because that idea would not have allowed chattel slavery. That idea would not have allowed the genocide of the indigenous people. You know, the original idea of America. That idea would not have allowed for that country to have engaged in wars of conquest, wars of expansion, colonization, pillage, and plunder in every single decade of its existence. Now, that America was never allowed to live. That, idea of justice and freedom and equality and human rights and so forth, liberty, that idea was aborted as an embryo before it even had a soul. And instead, you spawned a monster and you just gave it the same name that you had planned to give to your original baby. And I said it was aborted. It wasn't a miscarriage. It wasn't a stillbirth. This was a decision. Your founders conceived of a beautiful idea and made a decision to abort it. And I'll tell you why. Because their cultural and civilizational genetics never could produce that beautiful idea in real life. Or anyway, one of the two of them would inevitably die in the delivery. Either the idea would die or the parent would have to die. And they sure weren't ready to sacrifice their own life, their own culture, their own so-called civilization, their own heritage, and their own approach to the world for the sake of that beautiful idea. No, they wanted slaves. They wanted pillage. They wanted supremacy. So they aborted the idea of America as fast as they could. And they just told everyone that they didn't. They told everyone that the monster that they really delivered into the world was actually that beautiful idea that they had conceived earlier on. You scammed the whole world. America scammed the whole world. It's like identity theft. You know, when a con man takes on the name and social security number of a dead person and goes around pretending to be them. Well, the idea of America is dead. And the ones who killed it are walking around here calling themselves America. It's identity theft. The only difference is that the idea was killed in the womb. It never even took one breath of oxygen. America, the idea, never lived. And all you actually gave birth to, ideologically, intellectually, morally, philosophically, politically, economically, and culturally, was just more of the same corrupt and wicked bloodline of Western pirates and marauders. Classists, racists, bigots, and psychopaths who give nothing to the world, nothing to humanity, but only take and devour and destroy. I mean, even everything that you make, your technology and what have you. Because I know you'll point to that. You always point to that as your great contribution, the West's great contribution to the world, technology. But even that was and is only achieved through bloodshed. You can't even figure out how to make something useful without having to enslave or massacre people in order to do it. Your whole technology sector was created for the purpose of war and carnage. Your technology came from your military-industrial complex. All of your innovations were in the killing sector before they were ever in the commercial sector. Why, you can't even make one single smartphone without tearing through 6 continents enslaving workers in Africa, choking the air in Asia, draining South America's water, and burying the entire global South in toxic waste. If immorality was radiation, we would all drop dead the moment we use any of your technology. Sure, you made it, but you never bothered to figure out how you could make it without killing, without colonization, without slavery, without brutality, and without environmental catastrophe. You've never solved a single problem without your solution creating worse problems. Because this is just the genetics. This is what I'm talking about. This is the genetics, the civilizational genetics, the cultural genetics, the intellectual and the ideological genetics of the West. I'm not talking about so-called race or ethnicity. I'm not talking about those types of genetics. I mean, even being fixated on those incidental characteristics is exactly part of the inferior cultural and moral intellectual genetics of so-called Western civilization that I'm talking about, because they're addicted to mislabeling the source of our problems. They're adamant about it. They insist on it. They're relentless about misidentifying the source of our problems because they never want those problems to be solved. Because just like I said before about aborting the beautiful idea of America, they knew and they know that their whole so-called civilization is the source of the problems, and you can't get rid of the problems without getting rid of the source of the problems. You can't solve the problems without getting rid of the problem maker. So they want you to always think that the problems are different than they are, that the source of the problems is different than it is. And that way they can protect themselves, they can protect their culture, they can protect their heritage and their so-called civilization, which is causing all the problems in the first place. And again, this runs through every aspect of their society. It runs through their economy, through their advertising and their marketing and so forth, and all the fake solutions that their businesses claim to provide.
Damn, that is an absolute brutal truth. The problem in the world today is Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. All the problems that they're facing themselves and everyone else is a result of their actions, a result of their policy, a result of their way of life, a result of their lies and their fraud. Being led by the small hats. All right. Let's cue up the next one. Let's grab the scriptures. This is Isaiah 29 and 15 and 16. And it reads, surely your turning of things upside down should be as up 15 first. Woe to them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yahweh. And their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us? And who knoweth us? Like he said, they're always trying to disguise the problem as something else and not them when they are the problem. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay. For shall the work say unto him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say unto him that framed it, he have no understanding? So they create these ridiculous problems, all right? And then they come up with these answers and solutions that make absolutely no sense at all, and that it just end up hurting themselves or making the problem that much worse down the line. Isaiah 10 and 1 and 2. Woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievances which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that the widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. So everything that they do, it hurts the people, hurts the country. All you have to do is just turn on the internet and listen to the people, including the people, the MAGA voters, who now realize the mistakes that they made. But the truth of the matter is, it would have happened had you went the other way as well. Because people, how quick they forget how the nation was suffering horribly under the Biden administration. All right? And you people need to realize that the left and the right are two wings on the same hateful bird, controlled by the very same people that we're talking about. Esau, Edom, the fraudulent so-called lion, the liar, the so-called white man, who's lied about everything, including who he is. He even calls himself white when he's not. He calls a whole race of people black when they're actually physically brown. Okay, but here we go. This is Psalms 94 and 20. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee that frameth mischief by law?
The most urgent task upon taking office was to shore up the same banks that helped cause this crisis. It was not easy to do. And if there's one thing that has unified Democrats and Republicans and everybody in between, it's that we all hated the bank bailout. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. You hated it. It was about as popular as a root canal. But when I ran for president, I promised I wouldn't just do what was popular. I would do what was necessary. And if we had allowed the meltdown of the financial system, unemployment might be double what it is today. More businesses would certainly have closed. More homes would have surely been lost. So I supported the last administration's efforts to create the Financial Rescue Program. And when we took that program over, we made it more transparent and more accountable. And as a result, the markets are now stabilized and we've recovered most of the money we spent on the bank.
I'm sorry you had to see that. Breaking news as JP Morgan Chase issues an emergency warning on an economic crisis, setting up a potential for a bank and or financial bailout. We're going to discuss whether or not we should keep bailing out banks, being that every time the Federal Reserve does, it puts millions of Americans in the crosshairs of decade-long poverty. Big banks are already closing down branches in multiple states, and rumors of a hedge fund bailout are already circulating. And once I show you guys how much money we should be making if inflation was stopped in the year of 2000, you guys are going to absolutely freak out and come to the same conclusion as I am. Anyone at all bailing out the banks in any capacity at the expense of mom and pop is but a tyrant and a true enemy of the citizens or nationalists, depending on what you want and prefer, of the United States of America. And happy Sunday. Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. You guys already know this video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Mitch, happy Sunday. Sir, how are you?
That was fine until you played that video clip.
I told you.
We'll deal with those clowns in a minute.
I told you you were not going to like that. I told you. I mean, you can see Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden in the background when Obama's trying to be serious with the American people, laughing. It's interesting that the only thing that brings Republicans and Democrats together are bankers.
Well, so I marked down.
What's up, guys? David Moss Jr. here, and in today's video, I'm trying the viral pod company cold plunge. We also have their brand new long pod. I'm going to get in both of these. We're going to set them up. We're going to test them out. We're going to review them, and we're going to decide if this is something you should consider or not. Let's jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and water test the long pod. So I do like that the bottom has some padding. I might have filled it up a little too much. So my biggest concern was, is this thing like gonna fall apart when I get in it? Well, the answer is no. I mean, it's like, it's not going anywhere. There's a few things I want to talk about because they're things that would be important to me if I was purchasing one of these. Compared to a galvanized horse trough, Rubbermaid tub, anything like that, it's wider than your standard galvanized trough. The sides have that insulation padding, and so does the bottom. The edge has this inflated little rim, which is really comfortable. I would say as far as comfort goes, this is comfortable. I'm slightly impressed. For the money, I mean, this is definitely something I would consider for sure. Now let's talk about dunking, because that's probably one of the main reasons you would get the long versus the standard ice pod is you want to be able to dunk and submerge under the water easily. Now I'm 6'1", 205 pounds, 210 pounds. Let's go under. Super easy. Well, this passes a few of the tests. It's sturdy, it holds a lot of water, and there's a lot of room in here. I mean, honestly, like me and my wife could share this. I could sit here cross-legged on one side and she could sit there cross-legged on the other. We could play thumb war. We could just talk. My only concern would be if this rim got popped. But once again, I think that's part of why it comes with the repair kit, and it does have a warranty. So that's nice. At the end of the day, if I was just getting into cold plunging and I wanted something that wasn't insanely expensive and I wanted to be able to...
Salakia. Fucking
They
commercial.
hated it, yet they did it. Transparent? Well, I've been working on a document for the last couple of days, and it's going to be a live breathing document. We'll touch on it shortly. Transparent, complete BS. Then they received all the money back that they spent. Straight up fraud, straight up lie, straight up not true. It's not just a matter of the lie. It's not true, because you have the compound cumulative effect of the interest based on the money that was printed in order for them to go ahead and do that bank bailout. And that has turned through the compound cumulative effect into a multi-trillion-dollar fraud on the citizens of the United States of America, which, by the way, was copied by other central banks, the exact same nonsense. It should never have happened. The bank bailout should not have occurred. And the inflation that you're seeing today is a direct ramification of the fact of the compound cumulative effect of the interest on that principle. Everything that moron just said is a straight up lie.
All right. So we're going to jump in. You got me triggered a little bit there, and I'm a little bit on tilt now. So we're going to go into JP Morgan Chase, but I want to say this before jumping into JP Morgan Chase, okay? So after doing my 3 years of in-depth analysis on the economy, the politicians, the housing market, everything, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I believe back in 2012, first of all, in 2012, most people don't realize we were headed into recession in 2012. And Ben Bernanke, the chair of the Federal Reserve, started something called Operation Twist, which essentially bailed out the banks and made Wall Street bankers and CEOs filthy rich with the taxpayer money. I believe it was at that time in 2012 that they really learned that they don't have to tell the public anything because the public doesn't care. And now I believe we're seeing the ramifications of that in the form of all of the apathy that we see.
That's true. Salakia. First on that damn commercial, I got up to walk away. A damn commercial started playing. And what he said about them not telling the public things, if you remember, going back to when Bush was in before Obama got in, how he said it was now legal. I forget the term that they used, but it was now legal to lie or mislead the public for the benefit of the government. You know, I forget the name of that bill. It was something that they passed. But yeah.
Around this country. It is absolutely disheartening. So hopefully you guys, this video, which will be chaptered below, is going to shed some light on what's really going on under the hood in the U.S. economy in relation to the Federal Reserve and the bankers. Let's get started with the warning from JP Morgan Chase. This article came out from Yahoo Finance yesterday on Saturday, April 5th. Trump tariffs will tip America into recession, warns JP Morgan. According to this article, Donald Trump's tariffs will tip the world's largest economy into recession. America's biggest investment bank has warned. Investment bank JP Morgan has torn up its growth forecast for the U.S. after global stocks tumble and wiped out more than $5 trillion of America's most valuable companies in only 2 days. But that didn't affect me in any capacity, actually. I like to see that because I want prices and deflation to happen. The investment bank downgraded U.S. growth by 1.6 percentage points for the year, while
the only thing more popular
not
than
this
me
time.
is Wild Natural
Bastards.
deodorant. Cherry blossom. Oh, I wish I could see.
Shut the hell up.
predicting listen, guys, okay, because we don't want this to impact you. And if you're already worried about losing your job, you should probably prepare to lose it. And most importantly, probably prepare to get a new one by predicting far higher unemployment that could leave nearly 2 million additional Americans jobless.
Wow.
JP Morgan notes, we now expect real GDP to contract under the weight of tariffs. For the full year, we now look for real growth of negative 0.3%, down from 1.3% previously. The bank's warning came as Americans' baseline 10% levies on almost all countries, including Britain, took effect. Other investors said the trade war ignited by the White House on April 2nd threatened to plunge Britain's debt-bloated economy into a Greek-style debt crisis.
So Europe is crashing right now. It's collapsing. So the West, you know, both Europe and America, the kingdom of Esau, Edom, is collapsing 100%.
It has nothing to do with those officials in that country managing their finances appropriately. If they were worried about these things, maybe they should have changed the way that they spend money. That would have been something good for them to do for their citizens and constituents. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section below. Markets also took fright as Mr. Trump vowed his policies would never change and only the weak would fail as the sell-off deepened. And by weak, I hope he's talking about like banks, right? And non-banks. I hope he is not talking about Americans living in poverty. If you think about the problem of being very indebted, you can be as indebted as you like as long as your nominal growth is higher than your interest rate, which is not the case in the US as we are running a massive, massive deficit. But if ever your nominal GDP growth stalls, not just on a temporary basis, below your interest cost, then you're in real negative spiral and it can move really quickly. Risk of recession have clearly gone up. I don't see why there won't be a recession at the moment. Isn't that a massive flip from the narrative we've been used to for the last 4 years? It's difficult to see what the solution is unless America walks back on this. And they're referring to tariffs, of all things. They're referring to tariffs, not the debt, fraud, greed, corruption, and Federal Reserve and central banking disaster. They're not referring to the roots of the problem.
So was not the first video he talking about the roots of the problem? How they don't acknowledge the real problem and they try to, you know, display it as if it's something else, as if it's someone else's fault.
I know your skin is crawling. I know that. But this is what people really believe. Some of the world's most important financial leaders have warned Mr. Trump that his aggressive trade policies, which is reciprocal, by the way, will wreak havoc by depressing growth and fueling inflation. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, said on Friday that the president's tariff increases were significantly larger than expected. And so the same would likely be true of the economic effects. Tariff measures clearly represent a significant risk to the global outlook at the time of a sluggish economy. Business confidence has already slumped by a third between the middle and end of 2024. They're also saying that the survey should act as a warning signal that industry confidence is wavering. Mitch, my question is for you, and by now the viewers should be aware that I don't believe any of these guys. Okay, you're guilty until proven innocent, especially if you're a politician. But are all of these warnings that JP Morgan Chase is doing, is that just a tactic to desensitize American citizens into accepting a near future bank bailout? Are they just trying to...
See, they're not even being, it's a bail-in. The bailouts happened the first time around. This time is going to be bail-in. And it's evidence of that they're already taking people's 401ks. They're going to take your money straight from your accounts to protect themselves.
To desensitize us to what's going to happen in the future.
They're trying to set the standards for what's going to happen to their stock, right? Because they're going to say, well, our stock went down because of the actions of somebody else. So they're pointing the finger, deflection. And that is what they're doing. They are wrong. And when you understand that they are a counterparty under the reverse repo with the Federal Reserve, and JP Morgan is at the top of the list. I literally have a whole list of those banks. I'm in the process.
So we can actually go right to the scripture on this next one so I can play this last video. This is Jeremiah 49:7. And it reads, concerning Edom, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, armies, all right, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? These people, they're the bases of men, and they're showing it. That they're not fit for rulership. They're not fit for rule. Verse 10, but I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiling his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. This is the end of the road and the fall of the self-proclaimed so-called white man. This is the end of his kingdom. And he's going out badly. He's not going out on his shield. He's going out very badly. Okay? And
for over 30 years, working with every kind of industry out there, and I want to talk about the devastating news with China now banning, restricting all beef imports into China from the United States. This affects cattle ranchers. That's the headlines everywhere, how much cattle ranchers are going to be impacted by this. This represents about $1.8 billion in sales every year for cattle ranchers, and about
mind you, cattle ranchers are sitting on stolen land that was appropriated to them, which was colonized and given to them during the land grabs, all right, from the 1800s. That's how you get your Yellowstones, all right? These people that are sitting on all this land that was taken from my people and given to so-called white people for fucking free, all right? And now the Lord is taking it all back from them. I told you, Manifest Destiny had a part 2.
third of American beef goes to China, okay? What people need to understand is this isn't the only industry that's going to be impacted by this. Let's just theoretically say a third of the beef has nowhere to go now. So cattle ranchers have to downsize. They're going to go into bankruptcy. But we don't just ship cows alive to China. They get transported to slaughterhouse facilities, and then from there the beef products get transported to meat processing facilities where they're processed into burger or steak or what have you. So now you have all these other associated industries that are going to be affected by at least a third as well. Then you've got all the transportation companies, whether it's the small time local haulers of cattle from the cattle ranchers to the slaughterhouses, or the larger commercial carriers who haul the meat in refrigerated trailers. All of that is now going to be impacted, but not just that. When you look at cattle farmers that are going to have to make serious cuts or maybe even close down, that affects other local farmers who supply the cattle ranchers with the cattle feed. That's going to be impacted. You've got veterinary medicines, veterinary care that's going to be impacted by this. Look at the meat processing facilities and all the industries that support them. You know, it could be your cardboard box suppliers from right here in the United States. Their sales are going to plummet. This is absolutely devastating. But here's the biggest part of this that concerns me. It's that Australia has immediately jumped in and filled that gap for China. So this is going to be a big boom for Australia. They're going to now grow by leaps and bounds. They're going to build infrastructure. They're going to increase the number of employees. Existing companies are going to probably open up additional locations. This is going to be a big growth for Australia. And the question is, why would China ever return back to the United States?
Exactly.
And we're just talking Australia and China's relationship. We're not talking about all the other countries forging relationships to fill in the gap, to cut out the United States. This is all because of a very inept, dangerous administration and Trump voters who do not understand they're being used and abused.
You know, so that the point has been made. These people are not, they're very inept, all right, and they're not apt to rule. They're what he's doing is he's driving this place into the ground. He's destroying himself. As a matter of fact, let's get one last scripture and get ready to shut this down. This is 2 Ezra 6 and 7, and it reads, Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of times? What shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the hill of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Verse 27, For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which have been so long without fruit shall be declared. All right, and you've lived, and we've been living in a world and in a nation that propagates nothing but lies and deceit. I mean, in every way accountable. I mean, per example, they lied about Kennedy. That was an inside job. They lied about 9/11. That was an inside job. The moon landing, it never happened. Matter of fact, Elon Musk made a statement about how he can't get through the firmament, how he's trying to break through the firmament so he can get into space. And what does that mean? You have to go through the firmament. You have to go through the Van Allen belt to go to the moon. And Elon Musk ships recently, better, faster, more powerful, couldn't go through the Van Allen belt. So Esau Edom is a fucking liar. And he's been exposed, and he's on his way down. And it's just, we're in the last moments of the last days. So with that, all praises, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak, Wadash, Kwam, Yasharala, Abad, Babal.